Hello and welcome to the Authentic You podcast. Today, I am so excited to have the lovely Meg here with me. For those on YouTube, say hi to Meg. And I'll just share Meg's bio and then Meg can add anything to that. So Meg is a transformational business and leadership facilitator who works specifically with people first companies who desire to 10x their impact and income while leading with love. With a background in health sciences, psychology, and marketing, Meg brings a holistic approach to culture transformation and scaling with ease. I love that so much, and that is leading with love. That would be the bit I would pick out of that to describe Meg. Yeah, that
Oh,
loving leadership, which is the also an event that we did together as well, loving leadership.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you would like to add to that, Meg?
Gosh, no, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. The other small aspect that I bring in that actually makes a huge difference, whether it's for a solo entrepreneur or a large company, is utilizing different personality reports to help find zone of genius for, whether it's the entrepreneur or the chief of staff, and we really use that in scaling the business,
I
which
love
you know a
it.
little bit about.
Yeah. Can we dive into that? That's something that I would love to dive into because there's millions of people on this planet, billions of people on this planet, right? And each and every one of us has a unique set of skills, gifts, talents, abilities, and we sometimes forget that. And I know there's kind of, there is a need for some kind of categorization or labels to an extent, right? To an extent, but it feels like this is missed a lot and is such an important part of like being human and some of the bigger organizations as well, like the fact that the people that work for your organization are humans with unique blueprints of how they operate, like such an important topic.
Yes. And I wouldn't say that that's my, main passion, but I do get really fired up with this conversation. Especially, I mean, you and I are both in the entrepreneurial world, and there's been a large shift towards being your own boss over the last, let's say, decade, really. And so it's had me thinking, what about all these companies that are doing really good work in the world, and yet, their people aren't being treated, you know, essentially being treated the way that they want to be treated, right? Whether it comes internally from the company or whether it comes from upset customers, right? And so being able to utilize this zone of genius for each person really elevates the internal temperature of a company and then like compounds on itself outward. So yeah, it's something that fires me up.
Fires me up too. I think my VA, when she first started working for me, I was like, right, we're going to get you a strengths profile and let's see. And she was like, no, no, I'll just do whatever you want me to do. And I was like, no, 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 we want you doing your zone of genius. So I think
Yeah.
this is relevant for for anyone personally and for any size of team as well, isn't it? Like you really do. And as somebody who has has been led in that way as well as leading in that way. I've also been led in that way, and that's just a beautiful way to be seen. And there's some research out there. Here you go, geek side coming out. I don't know if you've seen the research where it said something like 20. There's a 26% increase in performance of teams that use their strengths every day um,
Yeah.
and encouraged and developed on their strengths when they're told to, when they're told, here's some things you're not very good at that you need to get better at, the performance of the teams actually drop. So there's a whole like host of research behind that as well, which I think is amazing.
Yes. And so for anybody listening, and you're curious about your strengths, one of the, I think what you're referencing, Gemma, is actually the Gallup Clifton strength studies that they've done. So there's a lot of research that supports, you know, getting into your zone of genius, but also you can go get a report of your own it'll give you your top five and then it'll show you your top 10. There's 30 in total, and we all have all of them, but it's like, hey, these are the pieces that you're really strong in. So that can be a super fun report to go look at if you haven't.
I love that. The one I use is Strengths Profile. It's like very,
Mm,
very similar. Same research. I think they've maybe done their research together. So
yeah. High five is another one that goes like hand in hand
I was
with
ready
that.
when he said high
Yeah.
five. I
You're
was
like, yeah,
actually gonna
what?
I was like, oh, she's high fiving me in this conversation.
High
As soon as he
five.
said high five, my hand went up. That was really weird. It's like a condition
Well,
as well.
hello. Let's like do this.
High five.
Oh, I love it.
Mm.
Mm,
So I'd love to know. So this is a topic that you're very passionate about, being your most authentic self, leading from that space of love, leading others from that space of love. So I'd love to know a little bit more around why that's your passion. Can we delve a little deeper into the story of Meg?
gosh, yes. I mean, I could say that it started when I was born. I could go that far back. But, one of the very pivotal moments in my professional career has been, I was about a year and a half into business. And excuse me, you know this story a little bit, I think. I was about a year and a half into business and I had put together a marketing agency. So I had all these people, these videographers, these blog content writers, just all these people. I said, oh my gosh, why would I not bring this service into the world, right? And so, I kind of put together a case study program so that we could work out the kinks. It was very much to work out the kinks of what an agency would run like. And I ended up having someone who got really, really upset because her videos weren't processed in the time that she wanted them to be processed. And so she actually, I'm trying to think of the exact order of events because I don't want to misstep here. But essentially, she messaged every single one of my clients and said what a terrible person I was. She, shared several threatening messages with myself and my team, everyone who was a face to the agency, because we had a lot of faceless members as well. So everyone whose face she was aware of. And so it was like this moment when I had to say, how do I handle this? Love has always been my top priority, my top value. And so, how do I love my team, love my clients, and love this woman in such a way that doesn't also harm me? So I also need to love myself in this moment. And by the way, I have always had a little bit of a people pleasing fixer tendency within me. And so this was, to some people, they might be like, oh, that's no big deal. But I'm like, oh, this was like a dagger to my heart. And so I really had to process through, what is the most loving choice in this situation? And that wasn't an overnight answer for me. I had to take some time, like a full weekend, box of Kleenex, my kids' Halloween candy, going out to the mountains and like echo, 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 the whole 9 yards. And when it was all said and done, I released this woman with love and I basically said, I would rather love you from afar than resent you up close. Like this isn't healthy for me, this isn't healthy for you. And I did the same thing with my clients and my team. And so, after we finished that project for all the clients that stayed, I said, I don't think that this is really the the thing. And so how can I best support you in moving forward to your next space, right? So that was a really difficult moment for me. And I had so many people in my ear being like, well, you shouldn't give her a refund. You should fight this. You should go to court. You should do this, this, right? I just said, you know what? The thing that's most loving for me right now is to let her know, hey, this wasn't okay. What you did was not okay. here's the money, go in peace. And the same thing for, my clients and my team as well. So I had several people leave my business, so to speak, all at once. And none of the people that left did it in animosity, except for the one. But that was a really good feeling for me to know that they all felt really safe to make a choice that was sovereign for them. And so, was it difficult? Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was scary. It was terrifying. I lost like 90% of my income all at once. And also, it was really, really empowering for me to say, okay, like this is how I want to do things. So, this is how I'm going to move forward. So, sometimes when I think about love, I also think about parenting. So sometimes you got to be the strict disciplinarian, and I don't mean like old school disciplinarian, but sometimes you got to be really strict and upfront and say, "Hey, you earned this." Right? And sometimes you talk them through it and you give them like comfort and nourishment through the process. And it always depends on the child themselves and what the situation is. And same thing for your employees, your clients, your customers, etc. So it's really being able to be flexible and seeing the person where they're at, which I think is a skill that, you know, some people are born with and some people need to take a little bit more practice with.
Yeah.
That's kind of what that was the turning point for me where I said loving leadership is 110% where I want to put my focus and my energy.
Mm. What I'm hearing in that is the way that you made everybody feel safe, not just yourself. And I feel that's a really important leadership skill, is that psychological safety, because we are just so inherently wired to be like, "Oh, this situation is a threat. There's a tiger, So it sounds like that intentionally or maybe unintentionally, that, that psychological safety was what you sort of weaved through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Safety would probably be another one of my top
Mhm.
values and priorities everywhere that I go. Um, if people don't feel safe, and as a coach, if people don't feel safe in my presence, then I can't help them. Like there will be no transformation. I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the very basic
Yeah.
level is, safety, security,
Mm.
excuse me,
Yeah.
you know, a roof over your head, essentially. But it's the same thing when we're talking about the psychological effects of transformation is that you need to feel safe with the people that are in your direct circle in order to move to that next level and eventually to self-actualization. So yes, it's
I
very
love that
important
you
to
brought
me.
Maslow's hierarchy in, because it's something that I've gone back to many, many times when I'm like, oh, hang on, we just need to take it back a notch and go, okay, are the physical needs being met? All right. Well, that's clearly, where the issue is. So yeah, I feel like that's really important. And on the loving leadership piece, I'm curious about whether you've seen this happen as part of your journey or with clients, where especially when we're in people like ex people pleasers, where the love was kind of directed to other. So it's like stage one of the journey is the love is directed to other, and there's sort of no love directed to self. Then as we move into like the next stage and we start to learn our boundaries, and the love begins to be directed towards ourselves, and then we sort of start to regulate the nervous system, and then there's sort of like almost this closing off to others that happens, which is sort of feels like kind of part of that process. And it's like I'm loving myself right now and I'm in this space. And then it's like the heart can open again and we move into like stage three, which is like I can love myself and you,
Yeah.
and it opens again. Do you see that happen?
Oh, 100%.
Mhm.
I think about my own personal journey and it followed those exact steps as
Mhm.
well. And I think that there is a necessary piece. I actually just made a post about this yesterday, Gemma.
Oh,
I don't know if
amazing.
you
This is so
saw it.
timely.
But it's like, hey, you don't have to do it alone. There's a lot of messaging out there that's like, be the independent woman, be independent, be on your own, right? Like you don't have to do it alone. And in fact, it's a lot more fun to do it together, whatever it is for
Hmm.
you. Um, and there are parts of your journey where it's going to be necessary for you to kind of close off, self-reflect, not hear all the outer noise or be asking for validation. It's really important that you're just tending to yourself and listening to yourself. This is also how we really harness our intuition to have some sacred space to yourself. So, whatever the transformation is that someone's looking for, there's going to be a time regardless of if it's, loving self and others, or if it's, scaling their business, whatever it is, there's going to be a time when like you are the one that has all the answers. So you need to just have some space for yourself.
I love that. And I'd love to know, like, what was your kind of key, especially as a projector, right? Because as a projector, you've got those open centers. And I sometimes, even as a manager, because I've got the sensitivity bit, I still need to operate almost a bit like that sometimes. So I'm really curious, and like, what was like the key thing for you that enabled that shift through those three stages for you, especially as a projector?
Ooh. I mean, yeah, so that's actually where my business started. I don't know if you've heard this part of the story before or not.
Mhm.
I found human design through a podcast, actually, much like this one. And it was a doctor and a nurse who were on this podcast together talking about human design. Now, at the time that I was listening to podcasts, I was very much in my scientific brain, evidence, and then we move, evidence, and then we move, right? So, of course, that goes back with my health sciences and my
Mm.
marketing background. It just kind of made sense. But I was in this self-development journey and I heard about human design. And so I said, okay, if a doctor and a nurse are talking about it, I'll go take a look. And for anybody else who's listening who has checked out human design, and if you are also a projector, once you find out you're a projector, you're like, I've never felt so seen.
Yeah.
Like this, how does this person that's writing this know me so well? So I, of course, dug deeper into it. And as I learned more about my design, really understanding that I absorb other people's energy so much more than others, but also I penetrate
Mhm.
people's energies. So I kind of make the hair on their neck stand up. It really brought around some self-awareness for me of understanding, why certain conflicts in my life had happened. And it wasn't it didn't feel like blame. I wasn't blaming myself. It was like, oh, this is awareness and now I'm seeing it around me. And so that really catapulted my journey. That's when I started scaling back how much I was working for other people. And it's actually when I left my marriage with my two kiddos in tow and found places to sleep. That was a wild year. It was all this like just deconstruction. And of course, in that time when I left and we're kind of hopping from couch to couch, so to speak, there was a lot of taking time just to be with myself, thanking the people who we were staying with, of course, and being a part of their family. But like other than that, like I'm just here with myself. And so I may have digressed from your initial question, Gemma, but human design really was such a prolific step in my journey that that's what I wanted to do to help people. I was like, I want to read your human design charts. And from there, it of course grew to some, like I love using Clifton Strengths as well. But that human design aspect is so, so beautiful when you can really, it's really about releasing the 80, like releasing 80% of what you're already doing, which is also the basis of scaling. So that's where everything kind of comes
Yeah.
together.
I love that so much. And I hear the same thing from every single projector that has moved through this. Like I'm so seen. Oh my gosh, I can like finally do life on my terms. Like just it's just so beautiful to witness and see like a projector come like into their zone of genius. It's just, yeah, it's just beautiful to watch. Similar for me with my like learning I was an MG, that completely cracked open this whole box of worms, can of worms, box. I don't know what the phrase is.
Same thing.
We're gonna have a box of worms. Um, and because I was like, well, it says Manny Jones have like this consistent sacred energy, and I don't feel like that. Like I'm so drained. Like when I first did my human design, this was like 5 years ago. I was like, yeah, but I'm super drained. I do not have this energy that this is talking about. As I started to
Yeah.
work through it and unpick it and decondition and realize that I'd been doing all the wrong things and focusing on all the wrong areas. And then it was like, boom, there's that sacral energy. And it came back and same as you, when I left my marriage, because suddenly this knowing dropped in. And it was like, this is not in alignment for me and I need to go and I don't know where I'm going to go. And I was effectively homeless and I was living in friends' holiday homes, like similar story to you. And then it was just like, boom, this is who I am. And then same as you, I had that, loving self time and got to know myself so deeply. And then it was like, okay, right now we can go, now we can expand out again.
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned scaling there as well. And you brought in the, letting go of the 80% so that you can scale. Could you expand on that a little more for those of us that haven't read that book, which I absolutely loved, by the way?
Yeah. So when we think about scaling, and people have widely different definitions of this word. So I'll just start there.
Mhm.
What scaling really is in business terms is that you are increasing your revenue without increasing your costs. Okay. So that's number one. But scaling is just as much psychological as it is, financial and marketing sales strategy. So the psychological piece is really, and this is scientific as well, is really if you consider what you're doing on a daily basis or a weekly basis, 20%, just only 20% of what you're doing is actually creating results for you. The rest is work that is not being done in your zone of genius. So releasing that 80%, and I also call this playing business. Sometimes we get out the spreadsheets. We're like, oh, I'm going to create this beautiful website. Like, that's what I need to do in order to get my business off the ground. Like, no, no. You need to be in your zone of genius to get your business off the ground, period. And so these things that we're doing that are playing business, those are the 80% of the things that we either just get rid of in entirety or we outsource. And so, you know, with human design, it also is like deconstruct, take away, get rid of all these things that are not meant for you. So I think that there's like a lot of overlap there, which I love. But once you get rid of and or outsource these things, now you're really freed up to focus on that 20%. And so one of the questions that I always ask my clients when we're really working on finding that zone of genius is what are the things that you do for work that don't feel like work at all? And so, some people will say speaking, or some people will say playing in Canva. You know, some people will say just like coaching when I'm actually coaching or when I'm leading my people. And so there's all sorts of different spaces. Some people will say, because I love this when I actually get to work with the team itself, I love figuring out the numbers. Like when the numbers aren't adding up, like I love getting creative with where we can create funds for our projects, and it's like, boom, yes, we need you. So it's like, okay, we got to get rid of the other stuff. And that means we're either, again, completely getting rid of it, we're outsourcing it, or here's the third one I didn't talk about yet, is that we're creating a system that systemizes it so that it's happening, on a computer in the back end, or, an intern could walk in and just do this for you. Right. And so there's a lot of like the systems and structures piece that also comes into play when we're releasing the 80. Because sometimes like it's not that this stuff doesn't need to get done for the business. Eventually, do you want to have a website? Yeah, but if it's not your zone of genius and you're getting your business off the ground and a Stripe link works for you, like let's do that. Let's do that. So it really comes down to finding that 20% of activities that do create an ROI for you quickly and they don't feel like work. And then passing off, creating systems for the other 80%.
I love that so much. Yeah, that's so important. And I see it as like as you're talking about it, Meg, I can see it as like a river. So it's like the little like leaks of the little streams that were coming off the river that were like leaking the water, closing those off, and then the river can flow faster towards what you want. Or you've got
Yeah.
your paddleboard and it's like moving you along, moving you along the river. I love that so much. And I don't know where this would fit within the 80/20. I'm curious about this because something um that I talk about a lot, which I used as my example of doing TEDx. So I'll just give the example and then perhaps you can put the 80/20 like spin on this. So doing my TEDx, I it was competitive. There was hundreds of applicants and I got three. And on the external view of that, people said to me, wow, you must be so competitive because you made it through. But I am not like I do not care about being competitive. Like see me on just playing a board game. I'm just playing it for for the fun of it. Probably annoys a lot of people. I'm just like I don't care if I don't win. So what I did to get on that stage was grow. I tapped into growth, like wanting to grow, wanting to help others to grow by speaking my story, sharing my message. So I was like tapping into that strength of growth, not competitive, but externally it looked as if it was competitive because I made it through and I was on that stage. So I'm curious, how does that fit within the 80/20? Like the reframe of something into a strength, if it's, if it's still, like you say, bringing you that revenue, how would that fit?
So I would say that's less about the 80/20, and that's more about the goal in mind. So the other thing that we do with scaling is, you know, let's just say your goal is to speak on a stage. Like that's where the goal started. I want to go present and like maybe get over my fear of talking in front of an audience. And so you would take that goal and 10x it.
Mhm.
And so you're like, okay, I want to be on TEDx,
Mhm.
right? That would be like a 10x goal of that. Or on a quantitative side of things, I want to make $1 million. Nope, you want to make $10 million.
Yeah.
So we would 10x that. And that again is both psychological and marketing strategy because, we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We also have the buyer's pyramid. At the top of the buyer's pyramid, about 3% of, and you know this, 3% of your audience is ready to buy from you. And 3% being kind of a gracious number there. So if we're going to times everything by 90, like 97% is essentially the same as timesing it by 10.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when we do that, both on a psychological and a marketing level, it really shows us where the bottlenecks are. Like, again, what are the things that need to go? What are the things that are taking up my time that are impeding my ability to hit this goal? And also, what are the things that I've done before to hit a goal that I, essentially 10x'd before, right? And so, you know, the reframe is more about saying, okay, I'm going for this, which tangibly means that XYZ has to happen and XYZ have to go. Does that make sense?
Amazing. I love that. And I guess there's also, sorry, we're going to say something else.
I was going to say, and also with the competitive piece, and because I've had the privilege of looking at your chart, is it okay if I mention your
Go for
heart
it.
space?
Yeah, my chart is
Yeah.
open for viewing, open for business.
So I've had the privilege of looking at Gemma's human design chart and working with it a little bit. Gemma and I both have this in common where our heart spaces are completely open. And the heart space is also a lot about competition. And so there's this Funny thing with having an open heart space is like I'm like you, Gemma. I'm like, I'm not competitive. I just want to play and have a good time. And yet, if I'm learning, so this comes into my ajna, which is defined. If I'm learning something, I want to I want to figure it out. So then my ajna becomes a little bit of the competitive side. And so you may have another center that that drives you in that way. It's likely your sacral. Like, so I'm a mental projector, so my ajna is essentially my authority, where your sacral is your authority. So there might be something there that kind of drives the ship forward. That makes sense. But just wanted to add that for you.
I love that. And that's back coming again back full circle to our authentic selves with that unique blueprint that we have, isn't it? And I wonder if there's also like a sense check with the goal as well. Like a sense check of is the goal actually in alignment with what my soul wants to do as well? I'm wondering how many people do you see, Meg, in your in your experience who set a goal, but it's actually not a sole goal as well. So it feels like there's another checkpoint there as well with that authenticity piece.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that question. So, since I work with primarily entrepreneurs, there's a lot of financial goals, right? And we see this a lot on the internet as well. So it makes sense that, okay, this person is saying that 10K is really easy to hit or 50K is really easy to hit. So that's going to be my financial goal. Well, what I like to do, and financial goals are where I primarily see the misalignment. So, number one, wanting something just because somebody else has it is not alignment. And so you're not going to be as driven to move that direction. And so when you hit an obstacle, you're going to back down, right? You're going to say, oh, that's not for me. I'm like, I'm over it. So having the bigger vision, of course, is really important. That's something that I work on a lot with my clients is being able to allow their vision to come through. That can be a big block for people. And to be able to really like see it, taste it, feel it. So that's one side of things. But the other piece of the financials that can be out of alignment is thinking when I get, let's just say $1 million, then I'll be able to retire, right? Let's just as an example. Once I get $10 million, I'll be able to retire. Like when we're thinking if this, then that, that's not alignment either. So it's like, okay, if the big goal is retirement, it's not necessarily the financials. The financials are the byproduct, right? So what do we need to do in order to get you to a place of succession planning, right? So passing the business along, selling it, etc., or ending the business altogether, right? Like what is that goal? And so the financial area is really where I see the most misalignment. So the question is, what do you really want from this money? And then that's the goal that we're moving towards.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that and going deeper into that. And I feel that's so I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. I suddenly heard an ice cream van. I don't know if anyone on the recording could hear it.
Oh,
It is absolutely pouring down with rain today in the UK, and an ice cream van just went past, and that completely just maybe,
that's amazing.
yeah, maybe
Like if we were doing this, I'd be like, Gemma, go get some ice cream out in the pouring rain. That feels like a totally
yeah,
epic memory.
soaking wet in
I
the
love
road
that.
with an ice cream. Yeah. Um,
I love it.
completely forgot what I was going to say. I think it was about yeah, the goal. And this is something so common. And this is something that when I came into the online coaching space, this is something that I encountered as well. Like, this whole, like the 10, I don't know what the word is, when this like elusive thing that everyone's trying to get, like, I don't know what the word is for that, but it probably is a word. But yeah, everyone was like 10K months, 10K months, 10K months. And I came into when I came into the online coaching space and I was suddenly like, and there's all this like comparison. And I think with really good intentions of like women seeing other women's potential and saying like you could make 10K months, and then like the whole comparison piece. So yeah, I feel like they're so important to be like you say, what's behind it? Like, what are you actually looking to achieve? And what is so important to you and your values? Like, what is actually in alignment for you? Um,
Yeah.
and then then looking at what you can let go of, what you can 10x. Yeah, I love that. And I
Yeah.
also love that you said speak on stage, go straight to TEDx, because that's what I did. So I didn't even know I
Yeah.
was doing it. I didn't even know I was doing it. So yeah, love that.
Yeah. And so, by the way, Gemma, when you set another goal, then you can look at this and say, what were the arbitrary, this is another piece, is like, what were the arbitrary steps that I took in order to meet this 10x goal? TEDx, 10x,
That's,
this goal. And that can inform your steps for the next big move too,
mhm.
right? It can help you project and predict what those
Mhm.
next steps look like. And same for anyone when you think about like we've all 10x'd before.
Mhm.
Excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
And you're
But
right, it
we've all
is.
10x'd before. So it's like, what were your
Mhm.
steps in the past? And for me, since this is all about authenticity,
Mhm.
I know when I've looked back, a lot of it has been around being authentic and speaking my truth, right? So I think that can be a big step for anyone.
Totally. Yeah. And what we let go of. So as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, like what I let go of, that was really big. I said no to a lot of things. So yeah, definitely. So we are coming towards, I'm not trying to close the conversation because I want an ice cream. It's gone. So we're coming towards the end of today's conversation. And the one thing that I always ask my guests is, and no pressure with this question, if you were to pick one thing, which I know is really difficult to pick just one thing, that one tip that you would give to help people be their most authentic selves, what would you say?
Ooh. Well, it is difficult to pick one thing. And with our conversation today, it feels really easy and simple to say. In order to be your most authentic self, you have to let go. You have to release everything that's not you. Whether it can be as small or as big as letting go of items from your wardrobe or letting go of relationships that are not in alignment, letting go of security, right? And in fact, I think maybe this is my biggest one is when you move towards freedom, you will become your most authentic self. If you move towards security, you will still be wearing everyone else's colors. I think that would be it.
I love that so much, moving towards freedom. That just, yeah, what a beautiful way to end the podcast. Thank you so much, Meg. So
Yes.
I will put all of Meg's details in the show notes so that you can get in touch with her. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close today, Meg?
Just thank you so much for having me. Thank you for being gracious with my voice coming in and out. And thank you everyone for, tuning in and taking a moment to consider how you can really shine your light in the world. Like, I think the number is 40 trillion. Like, you are a 1 in 40 trillion event. Like, you're here for a purpose. So please, please, please light the flame and go shine it to the world.
Thank you so much, Meg. Absolutely beautiful words to end today's podcast. Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.